Well, welcome to it's a nice combination of calls. Teruah, which is the ram's horn trumpet that is Yahweh's favorite musical instrument, the instrument that is used to announce an important message, announce the arrival of an important event, to call people out of human institutions, to invite people to him. It is of course, comprised of the ram's horn, which is the symbol for Father. It's a symbol for God. It's the ram's head is the first letter in both El, for Almighty God, and for Ab, Father. And it is of this horn that we blow our breath, our nephesh, soul, and out of it emerges both a warning to people that they ought not be religious, as well as an encouragement that God has a plan and that he would love for us to join him. And the joining him is in the second of those songs that you played. That was the ensemble that is introduces, which the song that is best known as the Exodus song, but it is really My Land. And it is the song of Yahweh inviting his people into the promised land, which began, of course, with him freeing them from the crucible of human oppression, from religious, political, military, and economic oppression, in Mitzrayim, which is the crucible of Egypt, and into the promised land, which is a symbol of living with God in his home. And so the juxtaposition of those two is really quite nice. And speaking of being called and invited home, one of our very favorite people transitioned from this physical mortal existence into eternity, into an energy-based spiritual existence with Yahweh, and that is our good friend Richard, who is the founder and sponsor of the blessyahweh.com website. And so while we will miss Richard, he is in a far better place. We were talking before this program began, and we have Scott and Kirk with us, that it is interesting that this week the Roman Catholic Church decided to announce that cremation did not necessarily preclude somebody from being considered a Catholic, and that it wasn't necessarily unchristian, although they would strongly encourage the remains of individuals to be buried, because their God and their religion says there's going to be a bodily resurrection. And they don't want cremation because that's harder, but they said their God can still manage to put a body together that has been cremated, but they don't want the ashes scattered, because I guess that would be too difficult for God to pull together the scattered ashes. But if they're put in a sacred place, like a Catholic mausoleum, that would be...
For a small fee, right?
So the guy that created something from nothing, he can't. It's just if the dust,
could take a little DNA and reconstruct it if you wanted.
If the ashes are too far out there, that's just too much outside of.
Yeah, and I would really like to know what part of me is me. I mean, if I am my body, should I be my body? Since my cells are constantly dying and regenerating, and since my cells today aren't nearly as elastic or as vital as they were 30 years ago.
Or even 10 years ago.
Which me is going to be resurrected bodily. And by the way, if somebody who lived 2,000 years ago and was buried in good Catholic stead, do you know that the biomass that has subsequently decomposed, do you know that it has been incorporated into things that have grown? And those things have fed all manner of life, and they've been transformed into other physical bodies and nourished them, and they have then been eaten and provided the flesh and nutrition for other bodies. In other words, if you were to take and reconstruct the body of someone who died 1,500 years ago, you'd be removing some of what makes you, and me, if we are to be considered our physical body. In other words, the whole concept of God putting together a physical body from a dead person and being able to do so over thousands of years is absolutely, utterly stupid, to coin a appropriate term.
Well, it also points out that they obviously don't know what the meaning of Passover was and what actually happened there.
Of course, or that it would be a tremendous liability to be straddled with a physical body. If you're straddled with a physical body, you can't be eternal in time.
No, you can't.
This entire universe is of no value to you because you can't get anywhere. No. You can't maneuver. You can't get from one place to another if you have a physical body, and you most certainly cannot enter the spiritual realm of heaven. You can't even transition into the fourth dimension, much less the seventh, if you have a physical body. What a terrible liability.
Yeah.
And then,
not much of an offer, is it?
No, and then to suggest that bodily resurrection is somehow mandated in Christianity completely ignores all of the testimony, not only that, as you mentioned, that God had to say about Pesach, Matzah, and McCord, and what those days represent,
right,
as Yasha fulfilled them and honored them and observed them. But it also completely ignores all of the testimony that Yahweh provided regarding, through his eyewitnesses, if you will, on what happened in year 4,000 Yah on Bekurim on that day. Because if he was resurrected with his own body, would his mother and the women in his life have recognized him on the morning of Bekurim?
Of course they would.
Yeah. And if he had been resurrected in his own body, would the guys who witnessed his appearances and speeches and followed him for years in Jerusalem, and then who had witnessed his crucifixion, the fellows on the road to Emmaus, would they have recognized him?
Wouldn't have taken place. No.
Yeah, they would have recognized him, wouldn't they?
No.
But they didn't, did they?
No.
No, in fact, the women in his life mistook him for the gardener, didn't they?
Yeah.
And why do you think if he had his own physical body, he would tell them, "Don't touch me, for I have not yet gone to the Father"? Could they touch him before?
Yeah, of course they could.
So why can't they touch him now?
Well, that's an interesting question. A lot of people have been talking about that recently. And tell me, what is it? I know he hasn't presented himself, or if that's the same story, I don't mean to get us off track, but if that's the same story as the one about Yasha in Genesis, where he takes off, he presents himself to the Spirit of God, and then he takes off the dirty clothes and puts on a new garment of light. Is that not the same story there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that why he can't be touched till he has all the garment of the
correct
dirty garments taken off?
He's energy based now.
Yeah. Would that hurt him?
Oh, for a material being touching, becoming in contact with pure energy,
no, that would kill him. Okay.
Instantly deadly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like when they touch the ark.
While the transition, if properly conducted through E = mc², is such that it increases our longevity and capability and power and energy and everything to the square of the speed of light. Well, it is an extraordinary transition if conducted properly. If it isn't, it's like an atomic bomb.
Okay, so that's I understand. I just want to confirm it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when the story in the among the eyewitnesses where Yasha went to the Mount of Transfiguration and he transformed from being a material being to being light.
Yes.
Do you see that him saying, "Hey, come and touch me and see how it works out for you," or do you say they just looked at him?
No.
Yeah, of course not.
No.
And if he's going to go to his Father, where is the Father?
Well, he's in the spiritual realm.
Right. And so if he's going to go there, he's got to be spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, and it's interesting too that
about the Catholics, you know.
Can you tell me, if he was a material being, how would he go from being there present in the early morning hours with the women to showing up 60 stadia? That's a long way.
Mm-hmm.
From there on the road to Emmaus, just in a moment,
or a pass through a door.
Yeah, I mean that would be a several days walk, and yet that same day, that's where he appeared on this road to Emmaus. And then, after having dinner with those fellows, he truncates the need for the several days walk and teleports, if you will, materializes in the upper room. He came through the wall. How does a body walk through a wall?
With great difficulty.
How does a body teleport?
That's a Richard question now.
And so when he appeared in the open room, did the disciples who had spent the last 3 years with him, if he had first of all, to be come through in the body that he had been whipped to a pulp and then been crucified in, do you think they would have recognized him?
That would have been a horrible body to look at regardless, but no, yeah. they didn't recognize him.
They didn't. Right. So how in the hell does the Roman Catholic Church get to the point that they want to talk about bodily resurrection? And why are they so fixated on having this crucifix of this gruesome dead body nailed to a pagan cross?
They just have to diminish him in every aspect so they can elevate themselves. That's about all I can come up with.
You know, if he's a physical body nailed to the post and deader than dead, I guess then they are it, right?
Yeah.
Basically their claim.
Mm-hmm. So they have to go the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it's pretty stunning. So Richard is energy-based now. He has the same heart. And the heart is not an organ from Yahweh's point of view. It is the seat of judgment. His heart's bigger than it was before, but he has the same heart, same personality, same attitude, same proclivities. But he is in perfect health. Now, it is interesting that his wife, Christy, sent us 3 pictures that were taken of Richard while he and Christy were down in San Diego back in August, late August. And, you know, I looked at the pictures and I realized, you know, I heretofore did not know what Richard looked like. I had talked with him on this program. I had exchanged hundreds upon hundreds of emails with him. We know each other pretty well. I loved Richard. He was a rascal then. I just really enjoyed his life story and his no-nonsense attitude. But his appearance was irrelevant to me. I knew him. I know him. But what he looked like was irrelevant. We do this program regularly. I've been working with Scott now for, 4 years. I don't know what Scott looks like. I know, Scott, you're you're 6'10" and
like The Rock, just better looking.
250 pounds of pure muscle. Yes, and make the women swoon by your mere presence. I
see my reputation precedes.
Yes.
It's hard that he stays so humble, isn't it? Hard to imagine.
Yeah, it is very hard. It's very hard.
And Kirk, we're good friends.
I'm a small version of that, by the way.
Okay. So says Terry, your wife.
Man, oh, Lenny Scott, he's a cold fellow.
Yeah. But we do this program together. Laura is one of my closest friends, along with you. And I don't know what you look like. It isn't even relevant to me what you look like, because it's not who you are. And this notion that somehow the Roman Catholic Church came up with, that we are our bodies, and that our bodies are part of us, and that they're relevant to us, is just such utter nonsense. You want to know somebody, know their heart, know their mind, know their character, know their personality, appreciate their proclivities. Their physical bodies are irrelevant. Richard's physical body gave out. But not his character, not his mind, not the things that make him who he is. And it's just amazing how the world is so fixated on the physical, on the mundane, and how there is so much more. I mean, infinitely more. It reminds me of all of the approaches that Yasha had to physical ailments. And, people would come up to him and say, can you cause me to, I've got leprosy, could you solve it? I'm blind, I'd like to see. I'm lame and I'd like to walk. My son is ill, my friend has died. Can you resurrect him? And his approach was always the same. Oh, good grief. Here I am, going to fulfill and honor the promises of Yahweh, to deliver the 5 benefits of the covenant, which will make you immortal, perfect, adopted children of Almighty God, enriched and empowered by Him. And what you're asking me for is to see, to walk, to feel a little better, to cure a skin discoloration? Why would you be so fixated on the mundane? And then he said, listen, perhaps for no other reason than to cause you to think that if I can resolve these nits, these little things that you're so preoccupied with, that maybe you'll look to me for the things that really matter. That's what Richard did. Richard came to know Yahweh. He didn't ask Yahweh to make him rich. He didn't ask Yahweh to make him healthy. He didn't ask Yahweh to live forever. No. He just says, help me share what I know about you. And ultimately, you'll make all of us perfect, immortal, adopted, enriched, and empowered children. That's how he spent his life. It was a life well lived. And today, Richard got a 10-year head start on some of us. And is out to now partying with Yahweh, and will soon be out exploring the universe. And, I sent Richard an email. I don't know how the connectivity is up there in Shamaim in the spiritual realm, but should he have received it, it laid out some expectations. I expect him to do some exploring, and when we get there, to take us to his favorite places, share them with us. And told him that his beloved wife, Christy, was going to be coming up with us, flanked by those who had devoted so much energy and time and love to her during this time after Richard's heart attack. Fred Bill and Frank.
Bill.
So there we are. And with that, we're going to now, unless you have something else you'd like to add, guys, we're going to return to where we were in Yasha. We've missed the last 2 weeks during this time where we were not sure of Richard's fate. We knew, of course, where he was headed. We just didn't know if he was going to spend more time with us before going there. And Richard's site is the primary place which most people listen to this program. Go ahead, Kirk.
Well, I was just saying regarding that site, because I didn't realize so many people go to that site, What is the status on that as far as shows and things? Will that be continued very shortly?
The administrator of the ISP that where the site is hosted has shown an absolute commitment to work with us to keep it up and keep it going. Christy wants it kept up and going, and we have 3 covenant members, all of whom have said they will devote the time to keep it up and going, and to add these kinds of programs to it.
Okay, so we can continue to suggest people go there.
Yes,
their first play. Okay.
Yes, and in addition to that, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to mirror the Bless Yahweh site, so that we'll be provide access to it for via other kinds of links. So it's important for people to know what we've come to know about Yahweh, and that's the legacy of Richard. Is to share the message of Yahweh for the benefit of others. And Richard was never rich, but he was enriched by what he gave to others. And he did not request any donations and never accepted any donations to support that site. And nor do we for any of the things that we do, except you, Kirk. I know you get paid the big bucks for.
Oh, yeah, the big bucks. Rolling in dough here.
Yeah. This is the word that relationally and beneficially, Yasha, son of Amos. Amos means trustworthy, steadfast, confirming, upholding, and supportive. Yasha, of course, is salvation is from Yahweh. Observed. In the prophetic vision, the Shazah, that which was received from God, beheld, looked upon, and perceived, concerning what?
Yehudim, or Yehudah.
Yeah, Yahudah. And Jerusalem. Now, was he talking about the Vatican and Roman Catholicism?
I'm afraid you're out of luck here.
No.
He's very specific on where he loves and who he loves.
Yeah. Was he saying this is regarding America and Washington? No.
Not even a chance.
How about Great Britain and London?
Yeah. No, afraid
How
not.
about Saudi Arabia and Mecca?
No, not at all.
And by the way, this is Yasha. Do we have any way of knowing that this is what he actually said and that people haven't futzed with it and changed it?
Well, we have the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is one of the few scrolls that we have absolutely, what I've read, we have everything in the scroll. Plus, we have several of the scrolls as well, don't we?
Yeah, we have many copies of Yasha that are one percentage or another complete. But the one thing that is unique about Yasha, as it relates to an inspired revelation from Yahweh, is that we have one scroll that is entirely complete, and it's called the Great Isaiah Scroll. In fact, it actually has a building built to it so that it wraps around the entire circumference of the inside of this building. You can start at one end and go all the way to the other. So from the first word to the last word, the entirety of the scroll is complete, and it dates back to around 275 BCE.
Now, does it have anywhere in there where it says Lord?
No. 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 Yahweh's name is used
quite prominent
throughout it. And this fellow's name it's not Isaiah. It is Yasha. And that's how it's written.
Yes.
Is Yasha. Very important name. It means salvation is from Yahweh. And the testimony that Yahweh chose to reveal through Yasha was about the two places, one a subset of the other, that he cared more about than any place else on earth. Yahudah, which means relate to Yah and related to Yah. Relate is an interesting term because relate means that I can communicate with, I can come to know, I can engage in a relationship with, I can listen to and understand, I can appreciate, that's relate to. And related to means that you've either have a kinship or you're adopted, you're part of the family of Yah.
Yeah.
So
that's why we call them relations.
Yeah, that's right. Very powerful term.
Yes.
And Jerusalem. It's so interesting that the United Nations and UNESCO just came up with a draft document that was approved by 26 nations, with 26 nations abstaining, and I think 6 nations saying no, that claimed that Jews had absolutely no historical rights to Jerusalem, and that in fact it's not the Temple Mount, but it is the sacred place of Islam. When was Islam?
Was invented when?
Muhammad began to create Islam in 570 CE. This text was written in 745 BCE. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but isn't that about 1,400 years of history that transpired between those two things?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Do we not have overwhelming archaeological proof, including the very foundations of the home of Dode, as well as inscriptions not only within Israel, but from neighboring countries about Dode's presence in Jerusalem, and the city of Dode, of course, on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem, that confirm that he lived there and that the nation of Israel was there circa 1000 BCE.
Right. Now throw in the oldest complete alphabet, which happens to be Hebrew. You throw and on and on and on. I mean, there's quite a long list.
Yeah. By the way,
no, there's no question. I mean,
by the way, what did the Romans when the Romans took over the property, the territories of the Greeks, what did they call the province that surrounds Jerusalem?
I mean, later what they renamed?
No. What was the name? What was the name during all of the time that the Romans?
In English, it's always Judea, but it's Yehuda.
Yehuda. Yeah, Yehuda. It was the province. The Roman province was Yehuda. Look it up.
Right.
In fact, it remained the Roman province of Yehuda until around 135 CE, when Hadrian had the land salted, had all copies of the Torah soaked in water and then wrapped around Jews who were literate in Hebrew so that they could be burned together.
Slowly. What a charming fellow.
Oh, yeah. This was the fellow that wanted to rename Jerusalem after himself and then build a temple to himself on the top of the Temple Mount. That was the Roman. Of course, Paul says that all governments are of God and all governments are for good, and they only wield the sword for good, and you should submit to them. But just proof positive that Paul was a despicable liar. But that province was Yehuda until 135 CE, when Hadrian, hating all things Yahweh, thinking himself to be Allahu Akbar, better than, greater than Yahweh, pulled out the name from the writings actually, and renamed it after the long extinct enemy of Yahudah and Dod, which were the Philistines. Yeah, the Philistinians.
Philistines, yeah.
Yeah, and the Philistines. And it brings you to a question that we need to address, and we'll do so after the break. We were talking about Yahudah and Palestine, and it's really interesting to note. It shows how overly stupid most people are, ignorant, irrational. Is there any place, from an archaeological point of view, where the name Palestine exists? Could you find it on a? Could you find it on a building, on a monument, on a national coinage system?
No, their culture was not that advanced. They had nothing.
So there was a people named the Philistines, but they did not have an alphabet or writing system.
No.
They never built a building that has retained stood the test of time. In fact, there's no archaeological evidence whatsoever.
They even exist.
They even existed, right?
Outside of the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms.
Right. They're mentioned in the Prophets and Psalms.
Isn't that the irony of all ironies?
Yeah. So it's really interesting that since they're only mentioned, they're only known to us by what is written in Yahweh's Torah, Prophets, and Psalms. If they exist, then 100% of what can be known about them is presented in the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms. And according to the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms, the last of them ceased to exist when the Assyrians came through, not to attack them, they were too meaningless, but just to deal with the Egyptians. They obliterated. They obliterated them. So if the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms are true, then the people named the Philistines, of which Palestinian has been derived in Palestine, they do not exist. And they have not existed for well over 2,000 years. And even when they did exist, they had absolutely no claim to or no presence in Yahudah, Yisrael, or Jerusalem. None. Absolutely none. And if the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms is untrue, then the people never existed.
Good point.
So how could you be so blankety-blank stupid that you would not only claim there's a place called Palestine and a people called Palestinians, but that they, not Jews, have a historical right to the place? When Yahweh said exactly the opposite, and he is the only source of information these people even existed. I mean, it just shows you how defiant, how rebellious, how utterly confused, deceitful, deluded humankind is, and especially the academics and the political types, the societal leaders, the scholars who's used such perverse terms. It's just, the moment you use the word, you're saying, I am really stupid.
Yeah.
I am completely ignorant. In fact, I am actually delusional and deceptive. You ought not trust anything I have to say.
Well, I used to do things like this in college, things that I knew were wrong about whether it be religion or history, and I would point those out to my professors. And that was not a good thing.
They have a conniption fit, don't they?
And that was way back in the early 70s.
Right. Yeah, and what they'll do is because they can't argue the point with evidence and reason, they go right to ad hominem, don't they?
Oh, yeah, they attack you, and they also remind you they control your grades, and if you stay on the dean's list, you better... This is not a good idea.
Better shut up.
That pretty much.
Yeah, and capitulate. Now, the capital of Yahudah was named Jerusalem. Jerusalem is must be a Palestinian word, right?
Sorry, wrong.
How about a Roman word, a Latin word?
No.
Helen, Greek?
No.
Mitzrayim, Egyptian?
No.
How about Arabic?
I'm afraid not. That came a lot later.
Yeah, it was. It's a Hebrew word. It is from Yara and Shalom. Yara is the basis of Torah. It means source from which teaching, instruction, guidance, and direction flow. And Shalom is reconciliation.
Yeah.
Put them together.
Restoring us. Now, if Hebrew is the oldest language,
it's the oldest,
and it was the original language before.
I know. I don't think Hebrew is. Well, yes, Hebrew is the oldest language, and that is the language that was spoken in the garden. It's the language that was spoken immediately outside of the garden.
Right.
So it was the mankind's original language, and it was also the language that Yahweh communicated with the likes of Adam and Noah and also with Abraham, as well as through Moshe. And it's the oldest alphabet. In terms of a phonetic alphabet, it's the oldest phonetic alphabet in the world. When a phonetic alphabet, by all historical standards, is man's single greatest achievement, and that achievement was first manifest in Hebrew.
So God probably knows where his home is and what language he wants to speak.
You think if he's referring to it as Yahudah, it's not Palestina?
Yeah, well, if
Philistia?
I was representing him, if I was the Pope trying to pretend I'm representing him, I might add those to my repertoire.
You think that if you can create the three-dimensional language that we refer to as DNA.
Yeah.
And if you're able to conceive a universe out of words, then you might be able to communicate using words in an intelligent way?
Yeah, you would think.
And you would think that if you were God and you communicated these words, that a man would not be so presumptuous to change your words to fit his proclivities, would you? Anyway. This message is for Yahudah and Jerusalem. Then he says, it shall come to pass in the last days. Is there any way, Kirk, that we can tell when the last days are likely to occur?
Well, there's so many prophecies that give us clues that when you add up all the clues, it's quite simple and straightforward to me. But it's the end times, and we have everything from the number 6 to 7 being complete when he returns, joins us, all the way from every prophecy.
Yeah, like, for example, the fourth day of...
They give you benchmarks along the way, and all you have to do is say, well, gosh, that's the return of Israel. We knew when they left, when they were dispersed in the diaspora.
There are hundreds and hundreds of clues.
Literally, yeah.
That provide the timeline of Yah, the 6 + 1 = 7, of which we are now nearing year 6,000 Yah. The fact that 33 CE was year 4,000 Yah. That year 2,000 Yah was when Abraham, Yishak, Yahweh, and Yasha affirmed the celebration of Pesach and everything that Pesach represents on this very same mountain in this very same place, Moriah and Jerusalem and Yahudah. That was year 2000, 2,000 years later. In year 33 CE, we have Yasha fulfilling the first four of these Moed Mikre. And then you had 40 Yobel, or 2,000 years, to 33 CE, and you end up with 2033 CE. That'd be year 6,000, But there are so many other affirmations. For example, when he talked about the generation that witnesses the return of Yisrael to Yisrael, Yahudem to Yisrael. That would be
that's a benchmark.
That would be the last generation. That generation would witness his return. And whether you think that happened in 1948 when Yisrael was declared a independent state and Yahudem from around the world immigrated back to their homeland, or in 1967 when following the 6 Days War that they captured their this city that Yah was talking about, Jerusalem.
But then, if you only knew a little bit about the Yobel year, now we can be very specific within that same time frame, because there's only one left.
Yeah, since 33 CE, when Yosha fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, Bakoda, and Shabuah, was clearly a Yobel year, Yobel year of 2,000 or 4,000 Yah. That means that of the years remaining within the generational life of those who witness Yisrael's return, there's only one Yobel.
Yeah, we only have one opportunity.
2033. That's it.
Well, the odds it'll be on that one. Pretty good, I think.
100%.
I'll bet on that one.
100%. You know, I've there's this new thing that's the Hagee's, the minister who I lambasted for his blood moons. Long before the blood moons occurred, told him that everything that he said here was utter nonsense, and anyone who buys this book and believes his rubbish ought to have their heads examined, and that I would say with absolute certainty that nothing was going to materialize with his blood moons that were transpired last year. He is now on a crusade to say that the next Jubilee year, he doesn't know that it's a Yobel, is going to be in 2028. And how all these marvelous things, including, I guess, the second coming is going to occur then in 2028. It's just utterly stupid that people can't do the math. You know, when Daniel was given the prophetic proclamation about the arrival of Yasha in Jerusalem, where he was going to be cut off, but not for himself, it's 4 days. Yes, 4 days before Pesach in 33 CE.
Okay.
This is not hard, folks. You can do the math. And why is it 4 days before Pesach? Because when does the Passover lamb come into the home?
Right.
4 days before Pesach. And by the way, isn't 33 CE the only year within 3 or 4 years in either direction where the timing of Pesach occurs on a Thursday evening at sundown and continues through Friday, so that matzah occurs on a natural Shabbat, and that Shabuah occurs, or Bakodim occurs on the first day of the week? Isn't that the only year where the eyewitness accounts mesh?
Now we're never on that week.
So it couldn't have been in 28. In 28, I think Pesach was on a Wednesday. No.
Well, once again, if you replace Pesach with Easter, then you have no clue.
Then you have no clue. Yeah, then you're, and if you replace Sukkah with Christmas, you're so clueless.
Yeah, then you're never going to get there from here.
If you replace Yosha with Jesus, if you replace the Torah with your New Testament, you just can't figure it out. I mean,
and then you can't call it a Yobel year, because if you have to call it a Jubilee, because otherwise you can't figure out why you calling that with a Y and the other one with a J, and then you got the Jesus thing. Now what are you
going to do?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this was about what was going to happen in Yehudah and Jerusalem, and it shall come to pass in the last days. We are in the last days, folks. Now, we aren't in the very last of last days.
We're darn close. You can see.
Yeah, but you can subtract 7 years if you'd like from 2033, which is year 6,000 Yah, and you can get to 2026.
Mm-hmm.
And so the lesser tribulation, first 3.5 years, will begin in 2026 in the fall. And then on, I think it's a Friday, April 13th in 2029 for you Tricidacophobiacs. That's when the asteroid Apophis hits and we hit the midday of the tribulation and start the Great Tribulation. And then 3.5 years from that is when Yasha returns. Actually, it's Yahweh returning, and it's not his second coming. It'll be his seventh.
Mm-hmm.
And you can set your calendar to that. It's just what's going to happen. Now, the days leading up to it would be considered the last days. The days of the tribulation would be considered the last days. The days of the Great Tribulation would be considered the last days. And if you wanted the epitome, I mean the absolute definitive last days, it would be the 5 days between Yom Kippurim, which is the day he's going to return, the day of reconciliations, by the way, with Yehudah and Yisrael, not with a Gentile church, and Sukkah. Those would be the very last of the last days. And it shall come to pass in the last days, the house, the home, and family of Jesus Christ. No. Of the Lord. No.
Sorry.
Of Allah.
No, probably.
No. Of mankind.
No, the socialist section.
Of America. Of the Roman Catholic Church. Of the Pope.
Nice try, but wrong.
The house, home, and family of whom?
Yahweh's home and family, his covenant members.
But wait, did he say his mansion?
No.
Did he say his temple?
No, sir.
Did he say his shrine?
No.
Did he say his mausoleum? Did he say his basilica? Did he say his cathedral?
Oh, no.
Did he say his capital?
No,
Did he say his fortress?
Right. No. It's always home. It's always family.
Bayeth. Family, home, and house. Bayeth of Yahweh. In proximity to the summit of the first and foremost mountain of the mountains, lifted up, supported, and sustained as part of these elevated places. Now, why do you think that he went to all this list and say it's going to be, right next to the summit, in proximity to the summit of the first and foremost mountain of the mountains that it's lifted up, supported, and sustained in these elevated places? Is Zion a mountain in of itself?
It's the area. I mean, right. There's three mountains or three landmarks he's talking about.
Yeah, there's three important places on Moriah that are referred to as the Zion signposts along the way.
Along the way, yeah.
But Moriah is a ridge line.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's saying along that ridge line, near the summit of that ridge line, is where his house is going to be.
Right.
What's at the bottom of the ridge line?
That's is that where the temple is at the bottom?
No, it's the middle.
Okay, then it's got to be, the other part would be the
Dode's home. Dode's home. Dode's home. They found the foundations of it. It's at the very lowest part of the ridge line that is the ridge line of Moriah. That's where Dode's home is. Is Yahweh's home going there?
No, that's Dode's home, but it's
that wouldn't be the summit, would it?
No.
And the Temple Mount, is that the summit of Mount Moriah?
No, that's just where the Ark
threshing.
of the Covenant.
That's where the threshing floor of where the Ark of the Covenant was stored. Right now, it's been unbelievably desecrated.
Yes.
by the most hideous of all monuments to Satan, the Dome of the Rock and the furthest mosque, Alaska Mosque. Do you think Yahweh is going to do what other religions have done, like what the Muslims have done, and they're going to repurpose the Temple Mount to build their shrines, or to repurpose the cathedral that Constantine built to make it their largest mosque, and go from his cathedral to the Bloom? Is he going to do that?
He has a tendency to wipe the slate clean and start over. So.
In fact, he even says so in Yasha, yes. That I'm going to obliterate all traces of that. He's not going to put his home on something that is so polluted. He's not going to build his home in a cesspool of religious rubbish.
I think that's his first statement on the stone, and it no God's in proximity to me.
There you go. There you go. And Allah ain't God, folks.
Allah ain't God. No.
And so the summit, it's interesting. He said that he's left this place lifted up, supported, and sustained. It's interesting that now the area of Dod's home is just littered with all sorts of Muslim slums. Mm-hmm. And the Temple Mount is not only littered with Islamic, satanic shrines, but the area around it has got all sorts of Byzantine Christian shrines and temples and basilicas.
This third area is amazing when
pristine.
You pointed that out. That was
pristine.
I was blown away.
The actual summit of Mount Moriah has nothing on it. It's been sustained. It's just amazing that you can look at the single most desired and coveted place on earth and the single best view location, the best building site in that entire city. Over the course of the time in 2000 BCE, 4,000 years later, to today, has never had anything built on it.
That's so tingly.
Isn't that? I mean, that's just amazing.
That's really amazing.
Look at Google Earth, folks. Look at the summit of Mount Moriah, where it is. Or the fact that it's 777 steps from the set-apart place of the Ark of the Covenant to the summit of that mountain. And that mountain is exactly 700 strides above the sea.
Yeah. I think Bill or Jake or somebody sent us that one time with the picture not too long ago. And it was just, wow, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. And I was searching for this because I've been there. I've stood in the back parking lot of the Jerusalem bus station. Standing there, you're directly over Jeremiah's grotto, where the Ark of the Covenant is directly below you, the receptacle where the upright pole of Pesach was placed, where Yasha dripped blood through the crack in the earth onto the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant occurred, and it's right there. I would strongly advise you not to go and declare that you have found it, but that's where it is. It is the Ark of the Covenant is right there, and if you look directly above it, there's an escarpment, which is the face of the summit of Moriah, and even today it looks like the face of a skull. It's a skull. That's why it's called Golgotha, the skull. And then at the top of it, some grass, an old gnarled tree, but that's it. That's where his home is going to be. That's what he's just said. That is where it's going to be. And it's interesting that his home will be along the same ridge line of his most favored son, Dod. Now, why do you think Dod was his favorite son? Was it because of the fact that Dod was so good? I mean, he was really good, wasn't he?
The rascal of rascals, as you like to believe.
Yeah, he was the rascal of rascals, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had many, many, many flaws and many, many sins, as he described himself. But
I think I know why.
Why?
Because he was the most human. I mean, he was human in the true sense, and he still followed. He still came to Yah.
Yeah. Well, unlike, forgive my interruption, I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Well, I was just going to say that, my view is that he was brilliant. And that he not only understood what Yah had to say, and not only made the connection so to be able to perceive these insights, but that he was passionate not only in discovering them and understanding them, but sharing them. And I don't think there's anything that God likes more than someone who is devoted to, who loves to study his Torah, make the connections to understand it, and then share the insights that they have gleaned from it. I think that is the thing that he, more than anything else, enjoys. Dode was the epitome of this.
But he never changed God's name.
Nope.
He never changed anything about the Torah, not one jot or one tittle, as they like to say in Old English. He always presented it the way Yahweh said, despite whatever he was up to. He never. And
he hated the enemies of it.
He hated the enemies of it. He was he participated in all the Moed Mikros.
Yep.
I mean, he was on board.
He was.
There was character flaws.
Yeah. And but what it says is that the character flaws of he liked the ladies, and he had a harem.
Oh yeah.
And he liked the thrill of war. He did.
Well, he was good.
Yeah, and he loved wealth.
Yeah.
Accumulated a lot of it. And so the character flaws, while not being endorsed by Yahweh, were essentially irrelevant to Yahweh when compared to this man's devotion to studying, observing, if you will, and comprehending, and then sharing Yahweh's teaching, his guidance.
And that should be so comforting to anyone.
Right. Sure is to me.
That he's not looking for perfect people. He'll use old individuals. And
right. Yeah. The moment you recognize that the fellow that Yahweh chose to explain to us how to properly observe the Torah was not just guilty of violating the instructions of the Torah, but did so massively, and yet he was declared righteous by Yahweh, all of a sudden all the pressure's off.
Yeah.
All of the worry is gone. Pauline doctrine and Christianity are obliterated. This notion that if you violate one aspect of the Torah, you're guilty of violating them all, and the Torah can't save, therefore, is blown to smithereens by the fact that Dode violated virtually all of them, and yet was beloved by Yahweh, his favorite person.
With Yahweh.
Yeah.
Other times he didn't speak to him, but other than that.
Yeah, so sometimes he spoke to him through other people. Their relationship, was strained. I've had times where my relationship was strained with my sons. I didn't cease loving them, and I worked to restore that relationship, just as Yahweh did with Dode. But there are times, that they were, it's kind of interesting that when Dode had it rough, when he had to struggle, when he didn't have anything, when he was a shepherd tending sheep and the world was against him, his own king wanted to kill him. That's when he was inspired. That's when he came up with all of these marvelous insights that comprise the Mizmor and Mashal, the Proverbs and the Psalms. And yet when he had it comfy, when he had what man craves, sex and power and money and achievements, and the really big house and the most prestigious position, and then it's radio silence. It tells us that when we pray for those things, we ought not be doing that, because those things are counterproductive to the ideal relationship, aren't they? That's Dode's life is just such a window on how we should relate to Yahweh, how we should relate to his testimony, what the Torah represents. But anyway, it's Dod's house. It's going to be there on the ridge line.
Right next to Yahweh.
Right next to Yahweh. And that thing that is the Temple Mount, it's just going to be obliterated. There's going to be this giant river of pristine water that's going to run from the Mount of Olives right through it. And Yahweh's going to bridge that with a bridge of light between the two. And we will see what 6 + 1 is all about.
Really means, yeah.
Yeah, with man in addition to Yahweh connected. Really means as part of Yahweh's house on this place. And then every Gentile shall flow forth with joyous countenance, beaming with happiness, shining brightly over this. Now, what's interesting here is that how in the world can Yahweh be talking about when his house is on top of that hill? So he's affirmed the covenant. He's reaffirmed Jerusalem, and yet every Gentile is beaming with joy? Because the only Gentiles that remain, my friend,
Will be the same people who've joined the family.
That is correct.